Welcome to Adam Pinz's Garage and Fabrication. Today we're working on Nate's 2004 GMC Envoy. We're going to do inner and outer tie rod. Okay, so we already got the wheel off. We're going to start with removing this clamp right here. Get yourself a flat screwdriver, get it in behind, and the goal is to just pop it apart. There's a little tab that bends over. You just want to pop that out. And we're going to reuse this, and also the one on the inside as well. I like these clamps. One, because they're reusable and they clamp down really tight. You can put a zip tie on there, but most people tend to not get them tight enough, and they don't usually hold as tightly as this does. So if the clamp breaks on me, or there's just not enough room to get it back in there, then I'll use zip ties, but I prefer to reuse these clamps. But see, you can, where we pop the seam apart, there's just a little tab right there. When we put it back together, we'll line those up, fold the tab back over. But first, I'll take some needle nose pliers and I'll show you how to do it. I bend this back out so that it can be, so it expands the clamp out and then can be re-clamped once we get it back on there. Alright, let me grab some tools. Okay, so the typical sizes you're going to need, well, I like to use my adjustable wrench. Use a big 12-inch Craftsman adjustable wrench. That's my favorite tool for this side of it. And then the normal size is, I use a 7/8, but you can use a 22 millimeter. That's your usual jam nut size. If it's been replaced before and somebody reused or used the nut that came with the new tie rod, then it's going to be a different size. And this one is going to get converted because I can't stand when somebody puts a different size nut on one side than the other side. When you're doing an alignment, you want to reach for the same wrenches for each side. It saves fumbling around wrenches when you're doing the alignment. And so I already did the other side, and I had to replace the jam nut because it would not come free. I actually had to cut the outer tie rod in half so that I could retrieve the boot. Because this boot, it won't slide off that way. It has to come this way. And it won't slide off over the outer tie rod, so I just cut it right there with the cut-off tool. This one was okay. It came loose pretty easy. One of the tricks with these, though, is sometimes just turning on the jam nut itself doesn't seem to break these loose. Sometimes put most of the force on the tie rod side itself like that. That seems to break them loose easier when they're stuck pretty bad. Just a little tip. And then your nut for the outer, we'll relocate the camera here so hopefully you can see. Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to be able to get the camera exactly where I want for this, but I use a 13/16, but you can also use a 21. 13/16 is going to be a little bit tighter, but they're basically the same size. So this is your typical size for your outer. Alright. Alright, I'm actually going to grab a socket for this. Okay, skipped ahead a little bit. I already removed our nut. Now you might be tempted to just smack on the end of it. That's really not the best way to do it. If you have a pickle fork, you can use a pickle fork because we're not reusing this tie rod. Pickle forks tend to damage the boot. But my favorite method of removing these is to hit right here with, I believe this is a 32-ounce hammer. If you use a smaller hammer, it doesn't seem to work as well. If you use a bigger hammer, it doesn't seem to work as well. I was told that this kind of vibrates at the right frequency. So when you hit it, it causes a vibration. And for whatever reason, 32-ounce, I think is what this is, tends to vibrate at that right frequency that knocks these loose. Let's see if we can get it one shot. Try not to knock over the camera stand. Nope. You want to get a good hit on it. Try not to deflect. See? Boom, it's out. Okay, now we can unspin our outer. And I try to leave the jam nut pretty close to where it was. That way you can kind of compare the two new tie rods going on and kind of figure out where it's going to be. That'll get you closer. You'll still have to make adjustments once you get the new tie rods in there, but that will get you closer so that you don't have to make drastic adjustments. Now, okay, so this one is kind of hard to get to, and you're not going to be able to see it, I don't think. The edge of this clamp is right here. Both sides were like this, so I think they're all set like that, but you'll be able to see when you're looking at yours. And I'm just, with the screwdriver, prying the edge up. So you just let go. Now we can remove the boot. Got the clamp off. You might be thinking, hey, how the heck do I get this tie rod off? Well, I'm about to show you. All we have is a plastic sleeve right here. So just get something. I like my little pry bar for this. Slide it off. Now you can see the two flat ends where you'll be able to get a wrench on it. Or if you have an inner tie rod tool, that's the best. But I don't happen to have one. I've never actually needed one to the point where I actually bought one. Because normally I can just get in here. I like my adjustable wrench for this. And they usually break loose pretty hard because you should have some thread locker on there to make sure it doesn't walk out. So the new one will get thread locker. I do recommend using red Loctite. You don't have to use a lot, just a little drop, maybe two. Just a little insurance that it doesn't work itself out. Alright. There is our old tie rod. I use the Permatex, but it doesn't really matter what brand you use, just some red thread locker. So you'll notice this tie rod has some grease around it. I usually just throw a little bit extra in there just to make sure there's a little extra lubricant. Yeah, I just threw a little extra grease in there. Got my thread locker. Sorry, my lighting is not the greatest. And just one dab. That's all you need. Torque spec is good and tight. You want to get this as tight as you can without damaging your rack. You'll feel it rock a little bit. You want to make sure it's good and snug for sure. And the thread locker will help, but always make sure those are good and tight. Don't forget to slide your plastic collar back over. And let me grab my pliers and I'll show you how to reuse these clamps. Okay, so I already did the small one. If you remember, that was pinched. See how it looks now? It's quite a bit more spread so that you can re-pinch it. So here's our inner one. It's kind of dirty, but you can see that it's quite a bit pinched. Now the trick is, grab it right here with the needle nose pliers and then bend that part of it down, then move your pliers towards the edge there, like this, towards the edge, because you'll be able to get a little bit closer into that edge once you've bent that down like that. Now pull up on it, and look, see how it is compared to the other side? It's quite a bit more straight. So we'll do that to the other side. And do the same thing. That side is a little bit more difficult. Yeah, it likes to roll that out, but that's okay. We can grab with the pliers and roll it back in. And then we want to kind of reshape that as close as we can to round. Oop. See how that's spread now? Try to get you a good picture of it. And we've got our tab right there. And we fold that back over. Bam. One reusable clamp. Do make sure that you straighten that section out enough that it actually catches these locking lugs. And then we just place it back on here. So it spins nice and loose. And then to crimp it, I just use these. They're just side cutters. You have to be careful, don't over crimp them or you will just snip right through. We'll slide that back on. It will usually slide on a little tight. There you go. So that went on. And then side cutters are nice because you can reach in like this. Like so. And I just give it enough squeeze and test it afterwards. If you can't pull that off, physically pull it off, then you know you went tight enough. And let's see, I'll try to get you a close-up of it. It deforms it a little bit different by using the side cutters, but it works. So and then we set our outside one in place. And I forgot to put this on there first. It works better if you put it on first. Let's try and see if I can. There we go. Then slide it into place. And give it a crimp. And then test it. There. And that one's done. Okay, don't forget to put your jam nut on. And I was gonna try and line these up. But I forgot. So we're going to have to just kind of guesstimate this a little bit. I'll lay the old tie rod next to the new one here real quick and see. Okay, sorry, but we got a general idea of where it needs to be. Maybe a little bit farther. That should get us close. Alright. And we can twist this guy in. Boom. And we slide our outer into place. We got a castle nut with this one. Some of them use a pinched locking nut or a nylock nut. So one of my general rules of thumb with chassis parts is I go good and tight with my wrench, and then I will double wrench, or I'll throw a long ratchet on there and give it a little extra. So good and tight right there. Grab my double wrench and a little bit more to the alignment right there, and that should be plenty tight. If anything, it's probably over tight, but a little bit over tight is better than not tight enough. But do be careful, don't over tighten them. You're not trying to keep the space shuttle from taking off. You just need to keep your tie rod on your car. There. And a cotter pin in, and then a grease fitting, and this job is pretty much done. Don't forget to tighten your jam nut. Sorry, now it's a different size. When you tighten these, you might not want to cooperate. You might need to hold on to both the inner tie rod and the jam nut, because a lot of cars you can get away with just putting a wrench on the jam nut and it'll tighten right up. This one did, but the other side, for whatever reason, wanted to spin the inner a little bit. But to make sure it's locked in, use 2 wrenches. And so I'll throw my grease fitting in, put some grease in it, and this is pretty much done. Alright, sorry, battery died on me. But so, trick of the trade, even if you're doing both sides, if you do one side so that you don't have to immediately get an alignment, or if you got to wait a couple weeks or something to get a proper alignment so you can drive it in the meantime, I'll do one side and then take it out for a drive and see where the steering wheel is. Now if your steering wheel was straight initially, this only works if your steering wheel is straight initially, or, well, I mean, if the part is bad enough, then it can throw off the wheel too. But if your alignment was correct initially, so we'll word it that way, and you haven't been in an accident being the reason that you're changing, say, a bent tie rod or something like that, then you can do one side, get your steering wheel straight as you're driving down the road. If the steering wheel is straight, then do the other side and get the steering wheel straight again, and that should be close enough you can drive it around for a little while, but you should still get an alignment. And if you got pretty good attention to detail, then you could go as far as using a tape measure and actually dial it in a little closer. I might do some videos later on how to do your own alignments at home. You don't need an alignment machine to do it. There are tricks that you can get away with and get your alignment just as close as a machine can get it. The only thing that's difficult is you might have to buy a tool for camber, and you might have to buy a tool for caster. I don't have one for caster. I have one for camber. But caster can be kind of calculated, and it's not as important. It is important, but not as important, so it doesn't have to be exact. So keep on wrenching, guys.